Hey everybody, it's Friday. We are back with another check-in and we're glad to see you. I'm Suzanne and this is my beloved spouse, Dolce. And yeah, we're here to chat some more. So nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
So today we thought we would just share a little bit about our thoughts on letting go. We covered forgiveness, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So we thought today we'd talk a little bit more about letting go. So would you like to start and open that conversation?
Yes. Man, this has been the reason it was my week to pick the topic, and so I've been thinking about this idea of letting go for a couple of weeks now, based on some interactions with a family member. I think it applies to lots of different things in our lives, the sort of the grievances that we have and the resentments that build up. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And as Dolce said, that we talked about, the subject was forgiveness a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to touch on the kind of the difference and why we're doing this in 2 segments. And so when we talked about forgiveness, we talked about it being an action of the will, and that you determine that you're going to forgive someone, and hopefully you can pray blessings for them and wish them well despite the pain. And I think that overall we're pretty good at doing that as a spiritual practice.
I think so.
Overall. But there's the issue of letting go of resentments is slightly different, because I think that you can make that action of will, of forgiving, and it's almost a form of virtual signaling, even in your own mind and heart. I was thinking about that related to myself this week, that I was almost feeling like, giving myself a pat on the back for forgiving, but meanwhile thinking about some things that were really still ticking me off from the past. So that's kind of why we're talking about this subject today. Did you have any thoughts about the difference between forgiveness and letting go before we?
Well, forgiveness, though I know it takes a while, the act of saying it or just speaking the forgiveness can be relatively quick. I think when you let go, you have to go through these processes, one of which I think is to acknowledge your pain. And there's a lot in that. And and I think letting go, like forgiveness, takes practice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think
agree.
that they're alike a lot, but there's things that you can do. Letting go seems to be more active to me, where forgiveness seems to be a spiritual speaking and a mental grace. But letting go seems to be something I have to do with some sort of action.
That's really good. And we're going to talk about some tactics in a few minutes. So that's good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Action is good stuff. So kind of what has come up for me, why it's top of mind, is that I recently received a letter today, actually, from a close family member. And they were telling me basically about more than 50 grievances that took place like 40 and 50 years ago with someone else in the family. And it was multiple pages of these grievances. And it was a continuation of a conversation that took place maybe a week or so ago, in which case I was trying to say to them, please let go of this. It's not healthy. It's hurting you. Please let go of this. And so that was followed on by 5 pages of grievances, which I didn't read. And this person that the grievances are about is dead now. So, so this brought it top of mind about how damaging that can be. But it also made me think about my own temptations to do the same thing, to bring out the things, the wrongs that have been done against me, throughout my life. And there's always in all of our lives, there's some people who bring it more top of mind, who we feel more harmed by, or we feel more righteous anger about, or whatever. And like I said, I'm quick to forgive, and I'm even I think mostly good at releasing, but there's still that temptation to pull it back up and think about it, and almost kind of coddle those feelings of resentment. Do you find that's true? Do you fall into that?
I think so. When it does, it feels so destructive. When I pull any of those pains back up, they feel destructive. So I have to ask myself, why am I pulling it back up, and what am I getting from it?
Mm.
And it doesn't ever seem to be something good, unless there's something I have to write, or there has to be some kind of closure, or some kind of I have to act some way to let go. So in the action, I think it takes me from that mental anguish to feeling better.
That makes sense. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And so there's the long-standing family stuff. There's relationship, sort of romantic relationships can build a lot of this stuff, and then there's our political climate, which I seem to mention every week. Sometimes I feel like a broken record, but even in the news that we're hearing, and there was news about transgender discrimination today. So the news is fraught, and it's hard to not continue harboring resentments on an active basis multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do about that? And this is where we wanted to talk a little bit about the tactics. Do you want to say anything about that, about how you manage the political part? I mean, because I know my Dolce is more kind of tethered to social media than I am, which means she gets, she faces the onslaught. So how do you try to let go of that?
Well, I turn away from it as much as possible, but with some things I can't. So I may act by posting a more positive meme, or redirecting the conversation and then leaving it. Or sometimes with stories I will post, I will send a letter to the editor, or I'll send an email, or we'll make phone calls to our senators. And then I just kind of have to put it down.
Yeah.
It's like after that action, if I stay in this place, I become too angry and I'm not productive, and I start to lose empathy, and I think that is a very destructive way to go.
Yeah.
So I often see it, do a little something about it, and then move on to the next
move
thing.
on.
Yeah. What about
That
you?
makes sense. Yeah, I don't know with the political stuff. It's a challenge. I try to I'm trying to just literally let it go, because it's too overwhelming and there's too much of it. And I am aware of the negative impacts on me and my life,
Right.
our life together,
Right.
to have that poison actively in play so much of the time. So I'm trying to actively release it, even as I'm reading about it, like right after reading about it.
Well, and I think
So-
we acknowledge the pain, and we have a plan. We're going to vote. We're going to do what we can do. So having a plan, I think, is part of the help in that.
Yeah, and this is also, and like forgiveness, I think in part this is an action of will that gets easier. That doesn't mean it's magic, right? So when I'm hearing about this bad news or whatever, or when I'm thinking about this person who sent me this letter unleashing their unhappiness, and it brings up my own unhappiness related to this person, I'm trying to actively just let it go. That doesn't mean that it's magic. It doesn't make those resentments just poof into the poof
Right.
away. It has to be repeated over and over and over again, and but it does get easier. It does get faster, just like with choosing to forgive, making that action of the will to forgive. Choosing to release starts to become habit, which is very useful. One of the things that I think is helpful is reminding yourself that you're not even doing this for them, although hopefully
Right.
there are spiritual benefits and emotional benefits ultimately for the person being released. It's really for you. It's for your own freedom and your own happiness. And if you remind yourself of that, it can make it easier to do. And it's important to remember that, just as with forgiveness, it doesn't mean you have to continue exposing yourself to whatever poisonous situations there are. Letting go of resentments doesn't mean that what was done is okay. It just means that you're trying to let go of it so you don't continue to be poisoned by it. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of repeat exposure. Do you have any thoughts before I can?
Well, I keep
I
looking
have a
at
lot
you.
to say, so
I
I was
keep
gonna.
looking at you because this was such a painful thing that happened to my beloved today, and it's been, this person, it should be one of the closest people in her life, and they continue to hurt her, and she has several times just let go of the relationship as much as you can and said, we're not going to enter into any interaction because you hurt me too much. And today was very painful, so if you see me keep looking to see if she's okay, and part of that is like, I want to know that she's okay, but then I feel as I look at you, that anger, that I want to send an email, or I want to do something, so I'm probably going to have to write about it just to let go of it because of how it hurt you. You know, when things affect people around you, sometimes you can hold on
People you love.
to grievances or negative feelings that you have to let go of.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So some pointers for how to kind of, some more tactical tips for what to do to make it a little bit easier. And one is get rid of the things that bring resentment to mind, right? So this person sent me this letter. I have to make a decision about what I'm going to do with it. Am I going to keep it? Because this person is elderly, and when you know someone may not have tons of years on the planet, you kind of, it makes you want to hold on to the things that they that you receive from them, because you don't know how much you're going to have. But there's plenty of things that we keep around that are little talismans of our upsetness, right? Could be letters, could be emails, could be texts on our phone from someone who's no longer, we're not in relationship with, whatever. We keep this stuff, and it acts as a reminder to pull those resentments and sadnesses and all those things out. So considering kind of like dumping that stuff is helpful. You mentioned writing things down. Do you want to say more about that?
Well, I know right away when you got the letter, I thought, maybe I should suggest you journal. You pull out a diary and you write, and when I went to therapy, they would say, write a letter to this person who won't answer your letter, who won't do the things that you need them to do, but just write your feelings, and at the end say, I'm just going to let go of you, and I'm going to let go of this pain, and go stick it in the mailbox. Not even with an address on it, just a way of getting rid of it and releasing it. It's kind of like the releasing of the balloons. If you're holding some, they would say, hold those pains in a couple of balloons and go outside and release them, which environmentally I don't approve of anymore.
Yeah, right.
But, this was something they would suggest when
Yep.
I was in counseling. So, I think the journaling and the writing can help you let go, because not only does it, do you write down the process and the pain, you are able to also realize what's going on inside you and deal with that. Deal with that pain. It comes out in the surface when you write it. It might start out, how dare you? And then it might go somewhere to the middle of, do you realize how this makes me feel? So I think writing helps you process.
That makes
and
certainly
hopefully
does. As a writer, I'll say that's true.
You get to the end where you're not scribbling through the paper with anger, but you're releasing and you're forgiving, and the empathy takes over, and the person inside you is able to, you can burn the letter, you can mail it without an address, you can
That's
do
what
something
I was
with
going
it.
to say, is burning it. I mean, if some of these, you might be tempted to send it, and in which case it's often not a good idea.
You get something back and then you gotta do it all over again.
If this is a purging exercise, you may not want to actually send it, but I have heard burning is helpful because it's got that symbolic. If the whole point is to let go, then kind of burning and destroying this negativity, there's power in that. Some other suggestions are you can visualize throwing this stuff into the garbage, right? So like later this afternoon, I might have a thought about this person, and so I can just visualize throwing the emotion, throwing a particular memory or whatever into the trash, and then quickly moving on, right? It gives you something to do with that feeling and thought, instead of just telling yourself you shouldn't be feeling it. Feelings aren't bad. They're natural, and they perform lots of functions. But if it gives you something to do with negativity, I think it helps you process it, so you can kind of imagine throwing it away. I also saw a good idea about hanging a sign that says, loving myself means letting go. So that's just kind of a reminder, because it can feel almost traumatic. When you've been traumatized, when you've been hurt, when you've been wronged, sometimes it can become part of your formation. It becomes part of who you are. And that can be turned into good things and it can turn into bad things, right? But it can feel like a loss of your identity to let this stuff go. And so having reminders like a sign that says, loving myself means letting go. That this is a reminder that this is actually something good and healthy and helpful. Any other thoughts?
Well, I think visualization is key and very helpful to me. I mean, I remember practices where we would pretend as if I was holding onto a rope and the other person who hurt me was holding onto a rope, and I decide to let go. You know, that just that visualization of letting go of this tight pull that they have on you, or visualizing hugging them and them walking away and you turning around and walking into something more beautiful.
That's a good one.
You know, I think your imagination and visualization, I'm having a hard time saying that one today, is a good
Good
method,
tool.
a good tool to have in your box to help let go of things.
Yeah. Well, I have a little prayer here to try to help us all in this task of letting go. But did you have any final thoughts before we?
Well, I
we
just
do that?
want to make sure that people think about the fact that you don't want to let your anger or these grievances that people have towards you or your feelings towards them define you. They are emotions brought on by circumstances, and they don't define who you are. And you don't have to become what they represent. So embrace yourself and the reality of the all of who you are, and not just these situations with individual people. And we're not talking about every single person who upsets you that you should let go of them. We're talking about, I think, pretty deep grievances that are causing problems in your life is what I feel more like I have to let go of.
Yeah.
You know, if it's
Sometimes
minor
it is
things.
people. Sometimes it's
Sometimes
the
it
emotions.
is. Sometimes it's the emotions.
Yeah.
But
And the memories and the
and try to hold on to your empathy, and you know, kind of like putting yourself in the other person's shoes, trying to understand why they do what they do, helps sometimes, and sometimes you don't come to an understanding because it's not understandable.
Right.
So in those situations, you have to kind of, I think, with this person that you're speaking of specifically today, the things don't make any sense. There's just some kind of damage emotionally there, and you're not the cause of it. There's something that's inside them,
Right.
but then you can't allow them to continue to hurt you.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to really embrace yourself and don't let those emotions define who you are, because they're not who you are. They're
Right.
just an
And
emotion.
they won't help you.
They won't help you.
They won't help you.
If they control you, they could start to define who you are, and you don't
Yeah.
want that to happen. So I think it would be lovely if you said a prayer.
I will. I wrote a little prayer for us. Okay. So, source of love and light, help us to turn our faces away from bitterness and feelings of resentment. Give us the courage to release our grievances so that we may embrace the freedom of your vision for us. Make us quick to recognize when we begin to pick them up again. In the name of the one who loves us into more. Amen.
Amen.
So that's it for us this week. We hope that you are doing well. The weather here is glorious. We've been having highs of like mid 70s, and I almost feel chilly. I've actually got long sleeves on today, and I love it. I hope
I like
the weather.
sweater weather.
Yeah.
We went out and
And-
got flu shots today.
Yes, so get
that
your flu
was-
shots if you
yeah,
can.
take care of
'cause
yourself.
It's important. And if you're living somewhere dangerous with fires and storms and unrest of every kind, we lift you specifically in prayer. Everyone watching this, please pray. And we love you.
We love you.
will talk to you again next week.
Have a great
okay? Take very good care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.